Assalamualaikum to Seame. My name is Nur Shahira binti Abu Aziz. I'm from BA 2424A and I will present about my product, which is Islamic Letter of Credit, or to be known as ILC. What is Islamic Letter of Credit? It is a written undertaking given by an Islamic bank to the seller at the request and on the instruction of the buyer to pay at the site or at a determinable future date a stated sum of money within a prescribed time limit and against stipulated document, which must be complied with terms and conditions in the letter of credit. An Islamic bank may offer the ILC facility under the different Syariah contract, which are Wakalah, Murabahah, and also Musharakah. Apart from ILC issuing services, Islamic bank also provide ILC advising services, ILC confirmation services, and ILC negotiation services with the view of earning fees from these services. Next, for the Wakalah, under the principle of Wakalah, the customer requests the Islamic bank to issue the ILC, wherein the Islamic bank charges an ILC issuing commission. The Islamic bank acts as an agent of the customer, and the customer pays the full purchase price to the supplier through the Islamic bank. Thus, the Islamic bank is an agent that handles the payment under the ILC, but does not finance the transaction. And for Murabahah, under the principle of Murabahah, the Islamic bank imports or purchases goods and subsequently resell them to the customer at a markup price as agreed between the parties. And the title of the good is transferred to the customer only upon arrival of the import documents. If the customer does not have deferred payment or financing facilities, they must settle in full the actual price and other charges prior to receiving the import documents. And for Musharakah, in certain jurisdictions, the principle of Musharakah is used in addition to Wakalah and Murabahah. In this case, the Islamic bank requires the customer to deposit a certain percentage of fund prior to import of the goods. The Islamic bank will then issue an ILC and make payment using both the customer's and its own fund. And the customer is responsible for selling the goods and returning the bank's portion of the capital together with a predetermined portion of the profit. And Islamic bank also utilize the services of banks in other countries as their agents or correspondent banks in transactions involving ILC. For conventional bank, I have been choosing Affin Bank in order to explain more about conventional LC. Affin Bank able to issue LC to the most part of the world in different currency through 700 correspondent banks worldwide. The features of LC under Affin Bank are: the payment terms varies depending on the arrangement between the buyer and seller. And there are several types of special cost LC that has been provided by Affin Bank, such as transferable LC, back-to-back LC, standby LC, revolving LC, and red cross LC. Next, for the benefits, for the buyers, they are able to negotiate with seller for better credit terms and pricing. They can obtain subsequent financing at competitive rates, and they can minimize the risk of non-delivery or late shipment. And benefit for the seller, they don't have to worry on financial standing of the buyer. The order are confirmed and no worry of cancellation without concern, and there is a written control of shipping documents. And what are the major risks under the Affin Bank? Number 1, goods purchased or imported may not be in accordance to the customer sale contract, and the bank has no obligation to verify or validate such event as the bank deals with the documents only. Second, delay or non-take-up of shipping documents called under LC may result in demurrage charges being imposed on customer during clearance of goods at a later stage. Next, to differentiate between the conventional LC and ILC, I have been choosing Bank Islam in order to explain more about ILC. ILC under Bank Islam can be offered under Wakalah with Ujrah as well as under Murabahah. ILC is issued under Murabahah contract, and thereafter the good purchase will be sold at the customer at the markup price for a deferred payment. On negotiation of the LC, the customer may pay the negotiation amount at the cost. And Bank Islam also shows an undertaking to pay seller or beneficiary is accepted widely throughout the world. And the benefits under Bank Islam are: there is no transit interest charges as payment to seller or beneficiary only upon acceptance of document. There is no hidden cost, and it provides platform for both parties to agree trade terms and efficient payment arrangement. And customer may also request bank to purchase the necessary marine cargo takaful on behalf of the customer. And using fax application is also accepted if pre-arranged, and upon issuance, the bank will fax the copy of the ILC as reference to the customer. And what are the major risks? There is no major risk since the facility is short-term in nature and the rate is fixed for the whole tenure.
Next, I will show what is the difference for the fee and charge by both of the bank. Under Affin Bank, for issuance of LC, the minimum amount of payment that customer need to pay is RM100, while for Bank Islam, it is being divided into two LC, which are Site LC and Usance LC. For the minimum amount of payment that customer need to pay is RM50 for both of the LC. For amendment under Affin Bank, for extend validity or increase of amount, the minimum amount that need to pay is RM50. Same goes with the Bank Islam. For amendment under amount increase and extension of expiry date are RM50 also. For both of the bank, for other type of amendment, the minimum amount that customer need to pay is RM50. There is one example of Islamic letter of credit which is in modus operandi of Wakalah ILC. The first step, the customer with an LC issuance facility applies for an LC and places deposit with the Islamic bank. The second one, the Islamic bank issues the LC and collect LC issuing commission. The third one, the advising or confirming bank in the beneficiary's country advises the LC. The next one, the beneficiary submits document under the LC to the negotiating bank. Next, the negotiating bank presents the document under the LC and claims reimbursement. Next, if the documents are in order, the Islamic bank settles the claim less any charges. And the last one, the beneficiary ships the good. As for conclusion, for conventional LC, it is an agency and have a transit interest which in upon negotiation for foreign-based interest, standard remittance days interest, and have penalty charge for late payment. While for ILC under Wakalah, it also an agency, but there is no transit interest and the compensation is claimed for late payment. As I choose Bank Islam and Affin Bank as an example for ILC and LC, we can see there is a slightly different from the fee and charge under the letter of credit. For issuance of ILC under Bank Islam are much affordable compared to conventional LC that have been provided by Affin Bank, whereby issuance LC by Affin Bank is RM100 while Bank Islam only for RM50.